Three brothers. So last week, my uncle passed away, and I went out to the services, and family had a bunch of old Kodachrome slides, pictures, and they gave them to me, and I pulled pictures off of them. And there's some neat stories about each one. Now, dad and the middle brother, about 2 years apart, pretty close to almost the same day. And it's just a poor older brother who's survived everyone. So he's the one that gave me these slides, and I got pictures out of them. So the first motorcycle picture, Dad is 16 in that picture, and it's my favorite because while the family doesn't own that farm anymore, I drive by and everything looks a lot different except for the barn and the U-shaped kind of driveway. And last time I was home, I drove by and woof, boy, it just kind of hit me in a way. And I think of Dad and I think of the family a lot. And I think people give, boomers a pretty bad time about a lot of stuff. And I think some of it's deserved and some of it's overblown. But Dad in that picture there, he had running water indoors for maybe 2 years. And the older brothers had never known running water before they left home. So maybe that gives a little bit of perspective. Certainly the experience that a lot of people attribute to boomers isn't what I know or my family had known. Yeah, but that motorcycle was a pretty neat deal. So the oldest brother goes away to the military when Dad is 10 or 11, and then bought the bike for Dad out of Sears and Roebuck. And Dad rode that thing everywhere. He rode the wheels off of it. And I asked the oldest brother what he thought happened to the bike. And the other two brothers had always thought that it had gotten stolen. And that wasn't quite the case. Dad had actually put chains on it so that he could drive it around in the snow. And one of the cords that fastened the chain down broke, whipped around and broke the carburetor. So in the shed it sat for years and years until some family or friends or somebody was over, and there was a kid who was just doing kid things and went through the shed and saw the motorcycle sitting there, and Dad gave it to him. He said, "It's broke. If you can get running, go ahead." And it's funny what you get nostalgic about, because I think of all the things, you talk to a lot of those guys about all the cars they had and wish they had a giant barn to fill up, all the space for all the cars they could have had. But I think Dad would have traded all that for another ride on that bike. And it's funny what pulls you there. And then the other picture, Dad is sitting on the fender of a 68 Mustang, Gulfstream blue with a wood grain steering wheel, 390 4-speed. Now, the neat thing about that car is that at the time, I guess, and this is stories from the oldest brother. So the story with that is that Ford was doing a thing where their highest performance model didn't have any badges on it. So if you didn't know what you were looking at, you'd see that and you would think it would be a V6 or something. And this gets into the story of the middle brother. The middle brother, a pretty ornery guy, and I think the middle brother was driving the oldest uncle's Mustang, and a guy pulled up to him at a stoplight with a 327 something, Chevy something, and he's kind of giving the business. So the middle uncle, who was driving the oldest uncle's car, whip this guy, because you drive up, you don't know what somebody has. You kind of check out their badges, and that guy thought, oh, this is just a 283 who, and the middle uncle walked him pretty hard. And then they go up to the next stoplight, and the guy in the 327 SS, whatever it was, rolls up behind him with their wrinkled eyebrows and say, hey, what is that? And the oldest uncle, or the middle uncle who was driving, says, it's a V6. And then bang through the gears again, leaving him there. So it's all those stories and these pictures. And I think the oldest two brothers really kind of doted on Dad quite a bit, because, I don't know, maybe you realize when you sometimes you don't realize how difficult life can be sometimes until you get out into the greater world and you realize how easier other people have it. So I think they really doted on Dad quite a bit, because, this is the baby brother, right? But also you think about a kid growing up, a teenager growing up out in the middle of the country with not a lot, because they didn't have much. Even when things were good, they didn't have much. There's another story where dad had saved up and saved up and saved up to get a bike, and he was literally scouring the ditches for pop cans, and the middle brother came home and knew that Dad had been saving up for months and months, and said, hey, how much money you got saved up? And Dad said, $850. And so the middle brother took Dad to whatever place you would buy bikes, and took Dad's money and paid the other half to get Dad a bike. And there's a little bit of family pride there, because there were some neighbors down the road who had a lot of money, and Dad, as a kid growing up, always thought, man, I could never have anything better than the neighbors, because anytime I got something, the neighbors would see it and immediately get something better. And it was kind of a double thing, because, we're just a bunch of poor hicks. We don't, we're just getting by. And I had it pounded into my head as a kid, take care of what you got, because you don't know when the next thing has come along. And it didn't matter if they got anything good or not. The neighbors would always get something better. And I guess Dad thought, why are they competing with us? We're just a bunch of hicks. But they did, and it was a weird pride thing. But those are some of the stories. And I guess all this stuff is, bringing up some grieving things. But they're happy stories, and it makes me happy to share. I probably rambled a bit, and if you got 8 minutes and you want some smiles, I guess hang out.